His favorite vase.
She always says don't play ball in the house.
Pork chops and applesauce. That's swell.
Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. Hey, you guys. Oh, my nose!
Welcome to Here's the Story, a Brady Bunch podcast. Hey, I'm not going to tear this thing apart. It's my favorite show. And we're on to episode 5, which is titled Katchoo. It refers to Tiger the dog, or as Alice will call him, Katchoo King. Jan is stuffed up and sneezing one morning as Mike and all the kids are heading out to start their day. So Carol sends her back to bed, where her sickness immediately clears up. Mike must work very close by because he comes home for lunch, and while he waits for Carol to make him a sandwich, he goes up to play a game of checkers with Jan, and she instantly starts sneezing again. That's when Carol and Alice figure out that Jan is allergic to her new dad. After breaking the news to him, they quickly discover that she's actually allergic to Tiger. Now, this closely resembles the plot of an episode of My Three Sons from 3 years earlier called Tramp or Ernie, where youngest son Ernie discovers that he's allergic to the family dog Tramp. But that show's premise was similar to an episode of Dennis the Menace from 3 years before it, where Mr. Nelson, the neighbor, thinks he's allergic to Dennis, but it turns out it's just Dennis's new hair tonic. And here in the Brady household, they discover at the last second, as Mike is loading Tiger into the car to take him to live with their grandparents, that Jan was actually just allergic to Tiger's new flea powder. This was the first episode of the series so far that didn't have any other actors outside of the Brady household in it. The pilot episode, The Honeymoon, had the most. Carol's parents, the minister, and Mr. Pringle all had lines. Plus, there was the bellboy and all of the wedding guests. Eeny, meeny, mommy, daddy had the teachers and the kids in the play, and some with several lines of dialogue. Dear Libby had an actress that played Libby, and Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore had the mailman who had a short conversation with Alice. But Katchoo just features the main cast and Tiger. Except this is a different Tiger, or should I say, the third Tiger. You see, there was a dog used in the pilot strictly for the stunt of running along the laps of all of the wedding guests as it chased Fluffy the cat. And then it had a second dog for all of the other scenes, whose real name was Tiger. But before the filming of Katchoo, he was run over by a florist's truck and killed. So this episode used a look-alike dog. Though we've seen it before in the previous episode, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, because that episode was filmed after this one. Dog number 2, the original Tiger that was killed, will be seen one more time in an upcoming episode, but that's because of the difference between the order of when they're filmed and when they were aired. But this new replacement dog, the third Tiger, proved to be unworkable, and would only be seen once more for the 10th episode. A 4th dog was used for the 18th episode, and a 5th dog would be used for the 4 episodes in Season 2. After that, Tiger was never seen again for Seasons 3, 4, and 5. But his doghouse remained on the set because one of the studio lights fell and burned a hole through the Brady's AstroTurf lawn, and the doghouse was used to hide the burned spot. That 5th and final Tiger would go on to star with Don Johnson in the 1975 film A Boy and His Dog. This episode was also the first time we get to see the laundry room, or service porch, as Alice washes Tiger in a big metal tub. A scene that would later be spliced into the upcoming 15th episode. Alice also says, "We got Tiger before Bobby," even though we saw in the last episode, which would be filmed after this one, that Alice wasn't hired until after Bobby was a year old, and therefore wouldn't have been around to be a part of the "We got Tiger before Bobby" time frame. Carol appears to be wearing a giant bib with her dress, but it's actually a large, wide scarf of sorts tied into a knot. I wonder if anyone in real life actually dressed up like she does just to hang around the house all day. And Jan's hair is so long, she can actually sit on it. It reminds me of my own daughter from 20 years ago when she was 6 years old, and I had yet to ever get her hair cut. After her bath at night, I would have her drape her hair off the side of the couch, where I would brush through it with a detangler spray and braid it before she went to bed so that it wouldn't get tied into knots while she slept. Then in the morning, I would brush out the braid before school. It was so much work, I finally took her to get it cut. Now, paying attention to the end credits this time, I noticed that the production manager was Sam Strangis, the real-life nephew of the famous musician and band leader Spike Jones, and brother to Judy Strangis, who would play Dinah Girl in Sid and Marty Krofft's Electroman and Dinah Girl. I also noticed that the audio post-production company used for the Brady Bunch was called Glen Sound. Interesting name. It was founded by a Canadian sound engineer that was actually named Glenn. I guess his parents had a sense of humor. But just like Tiger, he too died in a car accident. 9 years earlier, when he was just 52 years old, he drove off a cliff into a lake, killing himself and his wife. They're buried in unmarked graves and left behind 4 children. Until next time.